Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, on Twitter. We would like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, foodhammer.com, Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, Red Rum Sport Fishing, Carmody Outdoor Development Group, and Enlisted 9 Fight Company. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn on this February 10th. 10th of February, we are just a few days away from the made-up Hallmark Day of Valentine's Day. We'll talk more about that later, but I want to welcome everyone to our show tonight. You can see that you got Stu here in the very northern and patriotic studio, and Toby in the very southern, super southern studio. How's it going, Toby?
You know, I'm down here in my kitchen in Baja, living La Vida Loca, and, you know, don't want to forget our other shows. Gear for France being represented at this moment in time, the patriotic. So, great show sponsor, great friend of the show, The Shad. But anyway, life is good.
And for you, my friend, I am wearing my Letterkenny Irish hat for you tonight too. So, got to represent Letterkenny. So, and we have sandwiched in between us, sort of, latitude-wise, our good friend, our tonight's guest, Mr. George Bell. Hey, George, how you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Good. My hat doesn't hit my mic. Hey, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are. Rob is doing a great job getting us guests that all have wonderful offices with a lot of great swag on the back. I mean,
yeah, just had to put the memories up there.
Yeah,
I got a great bottle of mezcal.
You got that? Is that a coffee grinder or a pepper grinder too, or something? There you go.
No, it's Casa Azul.
Oh, okay. There you go. But welcome, George. Good to have you on tonight. Thank you for joining us and letting our giving some time for us and our guests and our listeners and viewers tonight. But before we get going, Toby, it's been a week. Lots been going on. Anything that you want to hit on before we start getting into stuff with George? Any hot news or announcements?
No, not really.
Okay.
I've been talking to a lot of Canadians here this past week, or past couple of weeks, and it's really interesting. You know, I feel like once they get out of the country, you know, they feel free to speak, and it's overwhelming, you know, people's opinion on some things, and I really want to dive into that here in a little bit. But let's talk with our guest, and then we'll get into, like, you know,
good stuff,
certain things that involve the word freedom.
There we go. All right. Well, hey, George, welcome again. You are a veteran, retired military, retired Army. You've done a lot in life. Mind just giving our viewers and listeners a little bit of your background and history?
Yeah. We're going to raise in Seubenville, Ohio. It's about like 45 minutes away from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, like right on the Ohio River. Graduated in 1997. Tried college for like a year, did not work out for me. I was trying to be a pharmacist. This wasn't my thing when I got there. So I joined the military in 98. And I came in as a psychological operations specialist and kind of stayed that my whole career for 20-something years, like 20 years and a few months. Throughout that time, you know, went to Korea for Full Eagle, went to Thailand with the Rangers, went to Afghanistan with the Rangers, jumped in with 3rd Ranger Battalion on October 19, 2001. We went back like 3 times with them, and then I went back another time. I was in 3rd Silent Battalion, and I was the NCOIC of this UAV we had called the WESADs. And the funny thing about the WESADs, it was a delivery system for, you could drop leaflets from it. You could broadcast TV, radio, or like radio. You can, there's bins and you drop stuff from it, whatever you had to do, and it flies, and it's supposed to fly back. Well, we'd go out to Yuma, Arizona, and it had a parachute on it, and that's what kind of guided it. It had a propeller in the back. If there's one right above me right here. So was three of them on there, and it was mounted to a Humvee. And the Humvee, so you had two people holding the parachute. It was a parafoil parachute. So, and then one person had a remote thing that like you could rev the engine. When it gets up, you could fly it. Then you had a driver, and then a release person that when the UAV got to like a certain knots, you drop this hoop that protects from the propeller. Chute goes, it goes up. The guy with the remote revs the engine, and then it's supposed to get up to altitude, and then it auto tracks to the waypoints that the person puts in on the computer system. And and I was able to get it to Iraq. It actually was in like combat operation, and it worked. But it was just the fact that like how my career went from tactical psyop to Afghanistan to a UAV to even before the UAV, I did a year training with industry, and I was at WRAL Channel 5 up in Raleigh for a whole year. Like I was a civilian not a civilian. I mean, I played it like I was in a civilian role, and I did that for a whole year. So I was able to see how a TV station worked and an FM station worked. And I'll tell you what, it was a cool experience. I tell you, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Then after that, I became an instructor, and then I went back to 6th Battalion. I went to Ukraine. I went to Germany and supported, Russian aggression. And then I was a instructor at the Operational Design course, and then I retired. So just a quick snapshot.
Yeah, I definitely want to peel back on some of that. I want to jump back before we get into many topics. So, the 1 year in the news industry in the state, was it a TV station? Were you just in the?
Yeah, it was a TV station. It was like, I mean, up here in North Carolina, it's like one of the best TV stations around. I mean, it's called their call letters are WRAL, and every time I'm watching the news, I mean, I have them on. I'm not trying to plug them or anything, but that's how like they're good they are. They're really good with the information and with like anything that happens in North Carolina, they have it. They show all the little cool little hideaways with all the cool like restaurants and things like that. So
is this something the military always did? Did they rotate psyops people? Is this like a special duty?
Well, I think I did my rotation. It was in 2005 to 2006 or something like that. I'm not real sure, but I just put in the application for it and got it. I don't know if I was the only one that put the application in, but so it was every day. Like I got up there like the first time, like they worked me through each section. So they had me up there like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm up there with the program guy, and we're programming and making sure the commercials are running and everything from behind the scenes. And then I went into the floor, excuse me, and then I was able to see how the cameras they program the cameras, and then I was able to do the prompter, and then there was a thing you held in your hand that had like a little wheel on it, and you kind of just kept it along with how they were reading, the flow. And one time they had me doing that, and I messed up the news anchor, and afterwards she came in around and was like, "Who was doing that?" And I was like, "It was me." Like, sorry, like, calm down, like.
So you got to, she might have did a Ron Burgundy, right? Just said whatever you put up there.
Yeah, right.
So you just it was kind of a year of just kind of seeing almost like an internship. You just got to see all the different jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
interesting.
Any section I wanted to go to, I picked. Like I was able to see like the sports section, and got to see when it was like when the year North Carolina won the Final Four or whatever. And I was up on a rooftop above a pizza shop, and I was able to see it was like ants converging on like whatever it was out there, just all in the street, lighting tires or whatever on fire, and
Right.
it was just cool to see, you know. So I'll always remember that experience.
So then
Hopefully, my little. Oh, go ahead.
I was so then you take skills back for the things you learned out of there that the military felt could
So
possibly
yeah,
be applicable in doing IO campaigns and that kind of stuff.
yes, but before that, before it was at WREL, it was at CNN.
Oh
So
wow.
there was a whole controversy through this training with industry program that they had PSYOP soldiers working at CNN, but really it was just them doing the same thing I did at WREL. You're not listen. If you think that I was up at WREL and I was like influencing the news and getting like news stories in, you're highly mistaken. That was like there was no effing way that was happening because every news anchor had to write their own story. So like, wasn't going to go to like one of the guys and like, hey, give you some information. Like, no, it didn't happen like that. So, but you know how like CNN and Fox and all that shit is. Like, it's always going to blossom into some kind of drama, and then from then on, I think that it was suspended, but then I think it came back. So that's kind of like a brief history of it. But the idea of it was for me to come back and work at our third battalion, which is like it was like a dissemination battalion, and they had all the audio visual, they had like a newsroom and like how everything was set up in a newsroom. They had that. So the idea, I think, what it was, it's just the leadership just doesn't know what right looks like, I guess, you know. So I basically, when I got back from that year, I was given the options of you can go back to 9th Battalion, to the Technical Battalion, or you can go to 3rd Battalion WESADs. So that's when I started the WESAD. I said, you know what, I'm going to try something different out. But I should have been in 3rd Battalion, like kind of in like a media team or section or whatever, and I would be able to take my experience of like running a board or showing how to run all the information and all the shit. So
Right.
So like I always assumed, like I just assumed that we had PsyOps guys working at AFN. Like,
well,
I would just, I mean, that was just
have,
assumption. Like, but
right,
like,
yeah,
do we? He's
I don't know. I don't think we do. I think a lot of it is actual like MOS that does like newscasting, like combat camera and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. But I definitely think like, especially when we're in like, Korea or like another like place, like, I would think like where that signal's like, easily interrupted or like captured, that we would be sending info. In every I guess every area of operation, I mean, there's a PSYOP influence there. So whether they're at they're doing that for AFN or not or whatever, I don't know. I know when we were when I was in like Ukraine, like for example, we were in the PAO section, in the public affairs section, and that's where we worked out of, and we were under certain authorities that would allow us to through partner nation, work through attribution. So if we worked with the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, we would be able to put their symbol on that product, that they endorsed it, they co-signed it, but if they wanted to, if someone wanted to investigate that, like a product we put out, like whatever, it's a news story or pamphlet or whatever it is, they can honestly track that back to who put it out. Like, you know what I mean? Like if there was someone really wanted to, by law, we have, you can track it back, because it's in the PSYOP, open source PSYOP, I guess, because we're just like, we're disseminating it. So it's just there's like different, aspects of it, I guess. Well, I know Troy wants to hop on Ukraine here in a second, but you kind of breezed over something that I think was kind of significant. you talk about jumping into Afghanistan early 2001. That sounds like a mustard stick. That sounds like a combat jump.
So yeah, I'll tell you what about like that whole experience. 9/11 happened. I was in this detachment that supported the Ranger Regiment. So first, second, third battalion. We each had a team that supported the whole battalion, and then our HQ support with 75th, like you know they're linked. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
so when 9/11 happened, the whole detachment basically we went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and we linked up with Third Battalion. We were going to go in with Third Battalion, and then we found out like we were going to do the jump in objective Rhino, and they were going to take 4 PSYOP dudes with them, and we had a detachment of like 12, 14 guys or something like that.
Bump
right?
plan.
So
Bump plan.
we came down. We had a great we had a great captain. Captain, and I want to say Captain Hedgepeth. I think that's what his last name. Great guy. He was an MP officer, but when for SIVE at the time, you reclassed or did whatever, and you were supporting PSYOP. And then I had my team leader was Staff Sergeant Turkle, and then my detachment sergeant was I think Sergeant First Class Jimmy, and then we got on. It was me and my team leader was Staff Sergeant Turkle, and then Marco Pelaez, and then my man McFarland. So we had 4 guys that jumped in with them, and it was just kind of cool because that whole experience was amazing. And the only thing that sucked was when we were in the area to get we shoot it up and got our gear on, and I was jumping the loudspeaker, and that thing was like it felt like
heavy drop.
Yeah, like 4 feet long, 2 feet wide. It was just you had like 3 batteries in it, this big box, and this big speaker, and these tires. It was just nuts. And when we were in the hangar shooting up, we had like Rangers coming by that were like JPIing us, and they were like, "Yeah, we got kicked off the jump for these guys," and they were pointing at us like the South guys. And I'm like, yo, man, I was a brand new sergeant. Like I just pinned sergeant on 9/11. Like that morning, well, it was like 4 days before. I graduated, was PLDC at the time. Graduated, pinned, and then the following, that was a 4-day. That morning, 9/11 happened. Boom, we were there. So I was a brand new sergeant. I had zero influence in the Ranger Regiment. Like I should have. You might as well call me a private in the support these dudes. You know what I mean? So, so it was like, okay, cool, man. But
hey, the only dude lower than you was like the ADA guy, the stinger guy. They'd be like, "What's that dude doing here?"
It's like, it's and then when you look back on the whole mission, it was a lot of military deception. It was a lot of like, we got to do this for USA. I mean, like, just really think about it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, though, the mission was realized. It was real. Shit was going down as we were flying in. Like people were there. They shot it. They shot up the whole compound. I mean, people fled. They tried to come back. So there was action on the ground. But at the same time, we were coming in and like we were prepared to like stay there as long as we could, and see what happened. But we jumped in, and just the experience itself was just amazing. Just being on upper like a jump with Ranger Regiment, and that was. I mean, I talked about that in when I was in AIT. We dreamed about like, oh man, I can't wait to get out of here and jump in with the Rangers, because we had got to jump with the Rangers in like Panama. So and we talked. That was in like '98, and then 2001. I'm jumping in Afghanistan with the Rangers. Like
awesome.
It was one of the best moments of my career, and it was the coolest thing because we jump in with the loudspeaker, you hit the ground, you get your chute, and you had to put on in the chute mag, and we had to take it off the runway because the shit was landing in to pick us up. So we had to drop out the drop zone, and like you get disoriented. I mean, you could, I was so nervous, and I got down and I'm like, I don't hear anybody. Like there's nothing going on. And I just sit there. I'm like, what the hell up? And all of a sudden I heard some Rangers coming in. And I was like, okay, here we go. Let's go. And then I got there with my loudspeaker and we did security hauled and, we got all grouped up and Sergeant Major, one of the Sergeant Majors, Ranger Sergeant Majors was like, hey, get your weapon ready. And I was like, okay, cool. So I got my M4, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got it on top of the rucksack. And he's like, no, your loudspeaker. I was like, it's not a weapon, you know what I mean? Like, stop it. I got a little embarrassed, And so we did like a little broadcast.
You're like, they're calling on me. They're calling my number. I'm about to go. Am I number 1, 2, or 3 which way man in the stack am I?
Jeremy, I'll be the first man in.
Like, yeah, get your speaker up and start blasting Metallica.
Yeah. So I was able to be like, one of the like first guys to broadcast in Afghanistan, which is pretty cool. I mean, it was awesome. And then, but like before, just being on that mission and being a part of that and actually like making an impact to, whatever the mission, was. And, I mean, everyone knew the mission was, but being able to have an impact on that and everyone back in the States seeing it. And like when we go into the chow hall, I mean, like we just landed and you go in the chow hall and you're on TV on Fox News and you have to be quiet about it because you can't say anything about it because it's, they don't want us to know, classified, whatever it was, you know what I mean? So, we walk in there and you see yourself on the news and you're like, oh, it's just pretty cool to see that. And all the rest of America saw that. And it was just like, one of those like proud moments you have, like America sees that and we're actually getting stuff done and it doesn't, we crushed them and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. What did you have pre-recorded? Did you guys have a linguist with you, or did you have pre-recorded messages that you guys broadcasted, or what?
We had pre-recorded on a mini disc. Usually on the mini disc, or there was a way to record on the actual like this controller, like the.
Hey Toby, he broke out the iPod. He's like, I got an iPod. Let me take my wheel and spin it around to my next tracker.
It was 2001, and
iPods weren't even out yet.
Yeah,
it was this big. And it was just
you said mini disc, and I was like thinking like that's a pretty solid piece of equipment.
The control box was that big, and then you had to like screw on like the AUX cord, and then you had the mini disc was like a Sony mini disc was like kind of like that big, like 3x2 or whatever, and it was just funny just looking back on it how the technology has changed, where you just hit play and you can Bluetooth that shit in,
But to be like you say, to be at a historic news generating event and be part of it.
Oh yeah,
and
I was like 21 at the time. I was young
and then walking around going, oh no, I didn't spill nothing on there. That's a little mustard. That's a little mustard right there. My bad.
Well, the thing is, like they see it, and at the time that when 173rd they jumped into Iraq. Everyone's like, that wasn't a combat jump because I don't really care what it was to them, or I'm not talking shit or anything. But it was funny because when I worked in South Africa for 3 years in Germany, and one of the guys that was in our J5 was a helicopter pilot. And he was on the ground there as they were jumping in. So it is what it is. But whatever the drama is behind it, but they did their thing and they jumped into Iraq, like, it is what it is. So.
Yeah. Like I say, a lot of people have heard those stories for sure. But I mean, I remember watching the video. I remember watching the thermal video of the Rangers coming in, and you see that C-130 or what might have been C-17.
We were on
I
the
guess it was.
One. We were on the last bird.
Just hot spots peeling out of both sides.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was an experience because when they opened the doors, all the like dust and dirt and everything, and it was just everything. It got into the cabin, and wow, how low are we? And we jumped at 500 feet.
That's a good point. That's a good point. You should not have dirt coming into the aircraft.
Yeah, so I mean, we did jump at 500 feet, which was like crazy to me. But chute open, boom, you're on the ground, and it was just it was an experience that I'll never forget.
No,
Like,
no reserves, right? Didn't even bother with reserves.
no, we have reserves. I think it may have been 800 feet. Don't 8 to 500, 500, 800 feet. But we had our chutes or the reserves. I think the reserve was there as
To
a
lean on, to sleep on, right?
like a little pillow,
Yeah,
like a
that
little
was that was your
blanket,
comfy.
security
That was your
blanket.
security blanket to sleep on in the plane
It
after you.
was it was by design. We said that like, hey, like a psychological thing would just have the reserve on. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't do anything like that. But
They go
I
to
think it was
open
like
it. They
like a
go to open it. Just a big
psychological
old
impact.
Care Bear pops out. There you
Yeah,
shitting there. It's
right.
like what, man. Well, hey, let's move up to Ukraine because obviously that's a pretty hot topic right now. I don't know if you guys heard, and if our listeners, viewers heard, it did just come out a couple hour ago that our administration does have a plan how to solve this and get the crisis tampered down. They are sending over our vice president, Kamala Harris, to Germany to speak with all the world leaders next week to try to get this whole thing calmed down. And I mean, they put her in charge of the southern border, and look, that's not an issue anymore. And
Oh,
everything
totally
else.
solved.
So yeah, so Kamala Harris will be going over to represent our country and with all the world leaders. So with knowing that and knowing that we were about to be on the edge of a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine, but it's probably not going to happen now thanks to this. But just give us an interest in some of your perspective on Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and what are your thoughts about when you see this stuff in the news going on over there?
So I was there in it was 2014 from like March or something like that, April, whatever. We were there working at the embassy, and it was weird. Like when we first landed, like the airport is away from the city in Kiev, and going to Kiev, and we had like an apartment building, whatever. And we got in late. It was like 11:30, 12 o'clock. And as we drove through the city, like as we drove through their Fifth Avenue, you come to a point where you can't go anymore. You can only go left because there were like barbed wire, tires, like the big old barrier around, like on the street, and that's where all the protests were happening, and that's where like where all the I'd say like their national guard, for example, would came back, and we turned the corner, and then we went to our apartment, which was like the best. Like I was in the army for I think 14 or 15 years at the time, and this was like my first like real like making money deployment. You know what I mean? Like you got to per diem like a nice chunk every day. It wasn't really that expensive over there, so you were saving money and having a great time and doing great work. You know what I mean? But just seeing that kind of like opens your eyes to like how real it is, like how how real like shit gets in these countries because I don't see that. I mean, yeah, maybe in Portland or something you see that right now because it's constant with with the law or the federal agents there. You know what I mean? But like they had a legit like lockdown of this area, this like 5 or 6 block area,
Yeah.
plus all the side streets. Seeing it was just it. So we the next day we got up and we were able to walk down. I mean, you were free to walk through, and they were selling like little art pieces and like Putin like stickers, like fuck Putin stickers, and the like toilet paper, like all those knickknack stuff. But they had a lot of cool little like old like military item stuff like that. I'm real into that, so I was like collecting all this kind of stuff. So, um, but you were there, and everyone's like nice, and everyone's cool. Like there's no fighting, no arguing. Everyone's like sharing stories. They had a stage, and they were talking about stuff and having like rallies and stuff like that. And we'd get down there every so often. It was cool. Like it was a nice area. And then, but at the same time, when we were there, as we were working, Russia was doing the same shit that they were doing in 2000. I mean, in 2014 as they were doing today. So I think now is a different. I think it's like a different atmosphere, different energy right now about it. So I mean, there is a real threat. To give a shout out to my guy Dustin at he works for Forward Observer. He gave me a little note to help me out with some like more just cliff notes. You know what I mean? But he's telling me that he said they basically what Putin wanted, his ultimate goal was to just reunite Belarus and Ukraine under a single Russian state. And then he said the conflict of threat is ultimately for that goal, and not just because he wants to fuck shit up. He just basically wants to take Ukraine. It's basically like he did Crimea. I think he took Crimea like it was nothing. Like hi, thank you. We're here now. We're good. Like what I mean, like some like Jedi mind stuff. And that was in like what 2014, 13, or no, I'm sorry, 2014. And just being there and seeing that, and just seeing how the energy in Kiev was basically was still like everyday life. You know what I mean? We get up in the morning, we either take the subway to work or we take a cab. And every time we were on the subway, it was packed. Like it was, I mean, packed going up, going down. Like you're on the subway, and it was jam packed. People were just going to work, living their life. I mean, it felt like as we were out west living life. There was like an imaginary border, because you had all of the Russian separatists, and you had on that border with Russia right there. So it's easy to have that the influence and everything. So that was where the army was. That's where the all of the volunteers were, like running information, running ammo, running food, running medical supplies. So you had like these civilians that were going back and forth, risking their lives, trying to get med supplies, food to these people. And we weren't even allowed to leave Kiev. I mean, we needed permission to go to what's the furthest east kind of nice town. I forget what it was called. Lviv. So we had to get permission. I mean, it was like a thing. We had to like get permission to go there. But to me, it was like nothing. It was just like everyday life. So, but we had these guys come back, because we were working for Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and then we were also working for this marketing company that would help us just produce our products and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then we get the information. But at the same time, the people that were working in the Ukraine Crisis Media Center were working. They were all freelance. They were lawyers. They were TV producers. They were like marketing people. So they're working on their own time, trying to like counter the propaganda, the Russian influence propaganda. So we were there to help them and use, we had our stuff, we had our people, we could make our products and get it out. So we had the funds to do it, obviously. But they would have these people come back from the border and sit down with us and give us like, what's going on, like the real stuff, so we could, use it for our information campaign. So, and just going through that process was kind of cool, because we had to like build a network. I mean, we had, Ukraine Crisis Media Center, USA, all these like little entities that were working, and they were all doing the same thing. And one of our goals was to sync all of our messages up, so we're like on the same theme, all the same messages, so we're covering more ground, instead of this person doing this and we're doing that. We kind of trying to do the synergy thing as much as we could, and we try to do our best. But but we were able to get stuff on the national news. We were able to get stuff like we had some handbills and stuff like that were getting torn down, and there was like some there was some buzz on Facebook over there about it, and we had people we had to hire to pass the stuff out, and they were getting beat up, taking the products, stuff like that. So we were getting the impact indicators that, hey, I mean, we had a little bit of influence, that we were, making a little stir up there, because we did billboards and stuff like that to support the voting. And they said like a post saying, if you see this poster, whatever, tear it down, stuff like that. So that was, it was cool to see like the stuff that we came up with was influencing a certain group of people.
Well, and that's something that we've, as a society, I'm going to say, I'm using the royal we forget. I mean, we're soft. We haven't had to really deal with anything. I know that there's all this conversation about like this armed insurrection that allegedly happened, a year and a bit ago, which there's probably a couple of people that were intent and legitimately, fueled by that passion. But I mean, I watched a documentary about the Ukraine and that square in particular, where the Freedom Square, where like they were doing the protest, and like it, we are so soft and so comfortable in the thought that our government would never really do that, and no government in the world would actually do that. Like, and there's this utopian like concept, and it's this idea that, like, you know, I watched a speech with Putin the other night, and Putin is straight up saying, like, if you have a problem with what we did in terms of taking Crimea, like, that's an act of war against Russia. So choose your words carefully.
I mean, right?
Because if you oppose my opinion, he basically said, like in the speech, if you oppose my opinion, I'm taking that as an act of war. And like, we're so used to politicians saying like the most ridiculous things, and like finding out that Kamala Harris is the one that's going to represent us does not like give me a sense of like, you know, any sense of confidence. I mean, she thinks it's probably, she's going to cackle, she's going to giggle, she's going to laugh. She probably thinks this is Reader's Digest and laughter's the best negotiation medicine. And, you know, and it's going to be embarrassing because there are people in the world, and I remember learning this in the 90s in the Balkans, like there are people in the world that want to see another group of people in the world disappear, not just like take a piece of territory. And, you know, like if you look at the historical implications of the natural resources that Ukraine had and how it was like the fuel that supported almost the entire USSR, like Ukraine was like one of the most crucial pieces of the USSR, more so than any other in terms of its natural resource richness, in terms of its labor force. It's not like Siberia was like providing like the backbone of the Iron Curtain. You know, like, no, it was like Ukraine. It had the human resource, it had the natural resources. And so like, just like Saddam Hussein wanted to get Kuwait back because that's where like the oil rich land was. And, you know, they believed that it was theirs. Like Saddam believed that Kuwait had never been taken away, you know, from the kingdom, and wanted to get it back. But people forget that this is a real thing. This happened in the world. And we're so soft in North America, you know, to think like, oh, well, we can just talk our way around this. Like, no, like the amassing of troops, the amassing of ordinances, and the concept, and then someone getting on a pulpit or behind a podium and saying these things, that's not rhetoric. But here in the United States, like in the Western world even, you know, like, you know, people get up and they make speeches about how eating meat is, you know, like part of the patriarchal aggression towards women, and, you know, like all good humans, you know, should not eat, you know, consume meat because, like, no, like there's people in the world that are like, I don't like the dude next to me, I don't like the land next to me, I think that's mine, and I have no problem like slitting this dude's throat for it. And like, and we're like super naive to that in the sense that we're soft, because we're like, wow. And we're going to send someone that's going to giggle about it, like versus like sending someone that could go talk.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have a nice boundary of ocean, except for, you know, Alaska, there, you know, that area up there. But I mean, we're lucky because they have to cover a vast amount of, you know, ocean to get to us. You know, if they want to come in, but, you know, obviously Alaska, that's a thing. But so it's like we're kind of safe, but at the same time we're not. You know what I mean?
We saw it on 9/11. That's when this country put all that bullshit aside, and no one cared about any of that stuff, and everyone realized really what I think every soldier. When I say soldier, every branch, right? I always call them all soldiers. Anyone that's deployed, anyone that's faced a threat against their life and their buddies' lives, no, and that is none of that stuff matters, right? When at the end of every day, when you can say I didn't get blown up today and I didn't get shot at, it was a pretty good day. Right, our country had that mentality for about 1.5 to maybe 2.5 years after 9/11, right? Definitely in the first few months after 9/11, but all that's evaporated, and then they started caring about the dumb stuff. They started caring about you doing okay, which has been fine by everybody, and now all of a sudden it's racist. Or now the newest thing is if you use the default emoji thumbs up, that's now a racist thing. I mean, it's just it's nonstop of worrying about crap.
I don't know that.
Yeah, that's a new one, because if you keep the plain yellow thumbs up emoji, that means you're not being sensitive to the other colored emojis they have, because that's literally,
I get it.
That's the level we're at now, that people have to worry about stuff.
Tell you what, like I'm not like
and all that stuff. I just don't really, but it's just like it's frustrating because it's like, can we just chill, like stop? Like this is like clown world level, like
Yep.
madness. Like it gets so frustrating. It's just like I can't. That's why, like, and I don't want to snap at people, but it's just like, stop. Like, why? What are you doing? Like, there's no reason for the way you're acting right now. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think that people different with the whole, like, the COVID and the politically correct stuff, and it gets all meshed together, and then all the other shit that's going on with the information out there. Like, just the information that's out there is just so, like, my wife's a nurse, and it's just everything from the beginning to like now is just what WTF hashtag. You know what I mean? Whatever. Like, it's just I can't, like, I really, it's hard for me to even talk about it anymore because I don't even keep it. I don't even consider it a thing to me, and I'm just done. Like, it's nothing to me.
Well, it's
I
interesting,
mean,
right? Because like Toby, you're down in Mexico, and I know you're busy and you've been working, but I know we've been talking since you've been down there, and you're not even exposed to all that shit that's going on up here. And
No,
I'd
no,
imagine
it's
it's
beautiful.
not like being deployed, but it's. I mean, I've been overseas myself in a civilian setting where I was in Germany and a few other places and stuff where you do kind of feel disconnected. It's like, oh, there's like real stuff going on in the world, and then there's the stuff going on in American news, and I imagine you're
Yeah,
seeing
no,
that down there too. Still,
no, it's really interesting because I like, you know, with with the business, I have my staff interface with the general public on a daily basis. Both in our bar and then on our fishing boats. And so, like, we have this very robust program of testing, and I follow like the COVID numbers. Uh, so that we're being a health responsible business, and the numbers here are like exceptionally low, and we're tracking the numbers because we know they're accurate because everyone gets tested. If you come here, as you're a guest of the country, you come here, you get tested to leave to return back to either Canada or the United States, United Kingdom. Like, they have all these testing requirements for you to get back in. So we actually know the vast majority of the people here, are constantly being tested. The hotel, resorts all have these testing programs. And so we actually know, like, we have a really good idea. Obviously there's some variance. There's a percentage of error, but we know with a strong certainty like what our actual COVID situation is, and it's not much. Like, it's not much at all. Now, with that said, the best part about that is it's just factual. It's just statistical information. It's factual. Like, there's no agenda. There's no like, well, I'm going to use this number, this obscure statistic, because I want to influence you into getting vaccinated, or I want to influence you into participating in some kind of program. And, like, I spent the day with a shout out to a good friend of mine. I haven't seen her since I was like in middle school. One of my like best friends from middle school in Canada is down in Cabo with, a group of folks. And I got to visit with her today. And, they were telling me about the vaccine passports that they have to have, and for them to participate in any kind of function publicly, they have to have this vaccine passport that's government mandated and issued. And, like, for me, like, the just the idea of that is so draconian, like, that you would have to demonstrate that like, we don't have to show ID to vote, to participate in the most important of civil duties, voting. Like, you don't have to show an ID, and damn you if you think that you should. Like, how dare you? And yet, people are like being asked to take these steps further and further, and these agendas, and like, you have to do this, and if you don't do this, you're a horrible person. And here it's like, it's just factual information. And I found like my quality of life and my mental health is so much greater because, like, I'm not being told what to think. I'm just given information and I can process it. like an adult, like a human being. And and my experience is founded in that anecdotal information. Now, your wife being a nurse might have a completely different, understanding and experience with COVID, because dealing in the medical field and like seeing the effects of it, or being exposed to it, or knowing more about medication or like treatment, like therapies and stuff, like you would have a different thing. And that's okay, because that's information and that fuels your perspective and your reality. But there's no like talking head saying, but if you don't believe what I'm saying, and that's like one of the things we talked about with these Canadian truckers, like the Prime Minister of Canada, this Trudeau, like makes this comment about how this fringe element, this absolute like despicable degens, from around the country, this fringe element, feel this way, but they don't have the feelings of all Canadians. Well, of course they don't have the feeling of all Canadians, but they're a pretty large amount. Like you can't talk away, the people that are like descending upon Ottawa. And what this trucker protest is, this freedom protest, this truckers rally, is what they're doing is they're saying, like, if you're forcing us to do something, we're just not going to do it. And you need us to bring you your groceries. You need us to like deliver your toilet paper.
Because they were heroes 2 years ago, with nurses and doctors and truckers were the heroes, right?
They were. Like they absolutely were.
That to me is that's where the clown world comes in. It's like, oh, so you're telling me all of a sudden these people are like 100% like hero status, superheroes. You're telling me once all this mandate stuff comes down, everyone's an enemy now. Everyone's a villain. It's like, like if you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. I don't give a shit what you do with yourself. It's none of my business. I don't give a shit. Like, honestly, I really don't. But y'all try like stop making it mandated. That's the thing I don't understand. Like, I get it. Like, everyone, you need to help out. I whatever the theme that they're trying to do. It's like, oh man, like let people make the decision for themselves, and if they want to get it, if you don't, that's fine. Like, do you? I mean, like, I had COVID in December. My wife had COVID. Like, my wife was fully vaccinated. She got COVID for like 2 weeks. Like, I had it for like 5 days. But I'll tell you what, though, it was bad, but I got through it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like I was like really, like it was a really bad flu. That's what it felt like, and.
So you have this experience, but and you have this, and I agree with you. I mean, I 100 like I could, each person has their own experience.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, there's this like, and I'm going to use Canada as an example. Canada was the last country to purchase the vaccine. So while the vast majority of the world, like, we're leading the way, especially the United States, we're leading the way as we're the ones that created the vaccine. Well, we're leading the way in this thing. Like, Canada's like slow to roll it out, and and it was purely political. Their slow rollout, and in the United States, our number one, what we felt was the number one priority in terms of vaccination, were the greatest risk group in terms of demographics, were people over 65 years old. Mm-hmm. And Canada was like, if you're over 65, we're not going to waste the vaccine on you, because we rolled it out poorly. And so like they were like, you're not important enough to like get the vaccine. The same administration, like fast forward 8 months, is like, if you don't get the vaccine, you dirty piece of shit. Like, and the thing is, like, the plain guy and gal that go Q public, they're like, wait a second, like, mom wasn't worthy of the vaccine 6 months ago. Now, like, she's a dirty piece of shit for not having it. Like, you just kind of wanted her to die. Yeah, and like everyone sees like, you're a PsyOps guy. Everyone sees the change in messaging. Everyone sees the change and stuff, and they're like, well, that's not factually accurate. That's not true. That's why I love being here, because all I'm getting is statistical information, and I'm like allowed to absorb it, like translate it, process it, and then get on with my life.
Like there was a time where I think I took maybe 2 or 3 years off of even watching the news. Like I didn't even read the newspaper. I did not. I mean, honestly, I did not watch Fox News, any local news. I mean, I basically got off all my news off of Instagram, and then all of a sudden, like it was just like you need to start watching the news, idiot. Like you know what I mean? Like at least watch something so you can read through the bullshit, or if it's like legit, you know what I mean? Like why are we like my thing is why are we pretending like why are we pretending about this stuff? Like we all know that this shit is there. Like why are we pretending? Like why are we skirting around it, or stop pretending? Like we know it's just you look stupid because we're looking at you like we know like it's not working. Why are you making us do this still? Like it's not working.
Now they're not, right? Because the polls are out, and now we have all this great messaging where you have blue states, including the socialist state of New York that I live in, now getting rid of the mask. But when they see the poll numbers and they're looking at 7-8 months until midterms, right? New Jersey, New York, Mass, Rhode Island, Delaware are all dropping the mask things. They realize the American, you got kids, right? You got kids in Loudoun County that are walking in without masks. You have teenagers that have bigger balls than their parents do, than the adults do, than the school boards do. Now, yesterday you had kids in Ballston Spa, New York, which is right over near Albany, do the same thing. Walked in, no mask. They put them in the library, kicked them all out. But they were all seniors and said, we're standing up for something. Which I can tell you from my perspective is encouraging, because you kind of think that kids today, the younger generation, is influenced by this ultra left, ultra woke academia, whether it be university or high school, that are steering them all one way. You can be in charge, you're empowered, and all that stuff. But what we're actually seeing is kids are going, at least we know they're seeing through some of it. At least some number of them are bonding together, not being bullied or peer pressured into being quiet, and they're saying, we've had enough. And so you see this pop up in polls. You see blue state Democrats doing it. Obviously, there's DeSantis and Abbott and some of the conservative states have never been signing back up for this. And now you have teenagers, right? Not even old enough to vote, or just turning into the age old enough to vote, who are saying we've had enough too in our short 15 to 18 years worth of life. So some of that gives me some encouragement. But I want to go and ask you one thing. Being a PsyOps guy, George, I saw the story about this captain. I think she was a captain, maybe a lieutenant, that was in the PsyOps unit that went up and was at the January 6th rally. I don't call it an incursion. I don't call it a protest. It was a rally that went kind of bad, right? And she was there, and she was a PsyOps person. And I saw a great interview with her where she talked about, what she saw afterwards and the messaging that came out of Washington right after, especially out of the Speaker of the House and everything. That she was like, they were going by the playbook. The PsyOps playbook on how to do narrative manipulation, IO campaign, message manipulation, all that kind of stuff. I think they ended up. I think she ended up getting out of the service. She resigned her commission. They were trying to boot her, but they couldn't really get her on anything. But from a PsyOps perspective, you have that experience and background much more than Toby and I are just grunts. Do you see similarities in how some things have been done, whether it's been by government officials, major media outlets, or anything? Do you see those same kind of traits being exercised?
I look at it as, honestly, I think everyone is doing this. Like every news outlet, every newspaper. I mean, they all have a way of influencing and making the headlines to read, to get you a reaction, to get you to do something. That's like how you measure something. You know what I mean? Like we need to get a reaction so we can measure it. So I honestly, I think everything you see is reaction based. Like every news article, every news outlet is reaction based now with their stories. So, and then whatever side you're on, it's going to either be, support that theme, or we're supporting this theme, and then we're going to have our side, your side, and then it's just going to be like a self-licking ice cream cone half the time. When you're looking at the news, you know what I mean? And
Right.
to me, it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why did it come to that? Like, you had motherfuckers climbing over the fucking balconies. You had a lady get shot in the neck and die. Like, what the fuck? You had like people like chasing the guard up the stairs, and what is going on in your head? Like that you were gonna like a pack of wolves, like kill this dude. Like, what were you gonna get out of that? Like, I just saw it. It was just like, what are y'all like? What's going on? Like, I look at it as when you're trying to get something legalized or something like that, and but you're out doing like clown shit, and I look at that as like, well, you fucking blew that opportunity to have like some kind of like voice, because now every news outlet is going to spin it into whatever the topic of the day is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's, to me, it's like, damn, we could have pushed that a lot better, I think. But at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, everyone saw it. No matter if you had a camera, a cell phone, you you couldn't really. If you were a person with a brain, you could see like, damn, like I mean, the footage is the footage. I mean, you saw what happened. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think we were all shocked. I mean, I remember it's to me. I don't know me. I remember talking to Toby about it that day. I think we had our show that night or the night after or something. But I mean, it was
Yeah.
like, I mean, to me, it's right there when the Challenger blew up. I mean, I'll date myself when
Yeah.
Reagan got shot. I mean, I just
Yep.
all these were. It's like I won't forget where I was when I looked at the TV and just saw this happening. Which to me, it was that much of a historic, just impactful moment
Yep. And
as many
I
other
found it on
bad things.
Instagram.
Yeah, but
Like,
yeah.
unreal.
But hey, we covered a lot of stuff tonight. We've been just a hair over an hour. Don't want to keep you anymore and stuff. But is there anything we haven't talked about that is near and dear to your heart? Any topics? Any nonprofits? Anything like that you want
You
to
know
make sure
what?
to mention?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
I'm in a course right now, and it's run by the Honor Foundation. You can find them at honorfoundation.org. And what it is a transition course for special operations and special operations support elements to go through. So it's, when you retire, I retired 3 years ago. I worked for fieldcraft survival. In the end, it didn't work out, and I moved on. And when I moved on, I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. My neighbor, he told me about the Honor Foundation, and I waited. I just sat on it because I was, depressed or whatever it was. But it is. It's a great transition, because when you retire, you have to go through post, and it's just not what this is. This is like in depth. You get coaching, you get resume, you get LinkedIn, you get like these treks. You go to Cisco up in Raleigh. You go to all these companies, and you see how they run, and then you get a coach, and then you learn about yourself, and you why, and it's a great program. So, like, if you're special operations or special operations support, check out it's the honorfoundation.org or honorfoundation.org or something like that. Or just Google Honor Foundation and
Yep.
it'll come up.
Awesome.
So that's all I got.
Okay. I know Rob, who get that up in our chat, would definitely do that. And well, awesome, man. Toby, do you have any final things?
No, I'm good, brother.
Okay. Well, want to thank you so much, George, for coming on, and appreciate it. People can find you on the IG at george.bell.jr., right? So
Yep.
they can find you there and keep up with things. And it's obvious you made it clear, man. You liking the IG, so
It's nice. It's a fun way to like
yeah,
share your life and history. It's like SOP stuff. Like I find in pictures and stuff like that. So
yeah, there's a ton of
it's
stuff
cool.
up there. It's for sure. It's one of
Yeah.
to me, it hasn't turned into one of the negative social medias
Yeah.
that
No,
I
I'm
feel
like,
like others have.
honestly, I'm a positive dude. Like, I like harmony, and everyone just chill the f out. Like, still,
I got that about you. You're more of a feng shui kind of guy. You want your aura about
let's
you.
just have a good time. Let's work hard and have a good time.
There we go.
That's really all you can do.
Yeah.
And just be a great American or Canadian. Hey, really though, on the Canadian thing, I'm sorry to overgo the time, but
no, it's all right. You go.
I really love like the truckers, like their commitment to it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
we could really honestly, like, we could go into like tons of topics of like the commitment. You know what I mean? Like, we're so concerned about what our sexuality is for some reason. I think that's a very private thing in my world. And but why aren't we talking about, like, obviously, like, child trafficking? Like, if we could have the same commitment that these truckers have to like real issues, damn, like, what could we really get accomplished here? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Everything comes down to the funding, which is, I think, bullshit. But because I would do it for free.
And they're doing it. I mean, look, and they're serving. I mean, look, and Toby, you know this, been in the U.S. long enough that, you know, we in the U.S. we always kind of joke about our cousin up north, and you know, it's like Canadians are always sorry about everything, and you can never get a Canadian mad, blah blah blah. But they've broken a lot. You go to the res, right? You can get some people worked up, but you know, they have broken a lot of stereotypes. And when you see, for example, like this, all the tow truck companies on contract with the city of Ottawa, and they send them out and they just get in line with the trucks. And they're like, hey, go tow those trucks out of the downtown. And they were like, no. And they went and parked right there with them.
That's a logistic nightmare trying to get those trucks out of there.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about that.
And,
like,
wow. And they're lining up, and you got people driving up and down, bringing them food, bringing them gas, doing all that kind of stuff. I mean,
but really, though, they're going to crush us, though. Our prices are going to go up, but it's all good.
They've already stopped. They've already stopped too. I mean, they blocked the bridge in Detroit. I'm waiting on them to block the one here in Niagara Falls. I mean, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of cross, stuff being made and built and assembled in both countries that are, it's doing nothing but making. I don't know how long it's gonna take for Biden to call Trudeau and say he better cave in, because the last thing we need is more supply chain stuff in the U.S.
Yeah, well, that's all good here.
Maybe they'll send Kamala up there.
I'll get my. I'm gonna start growing a garden right now, because I just really think this should go on for a little longer.
Was that Toby?
No, I mean, like, the commitment part of it is like, careful, like, how you poke the bear.
Exactly.
You can stand behind, and like that was my sentiment with, Putin's speech that we talked about earlier. Careful how you poke the bear, because to some people, it's like it's more than just words. And
exactly.
Pretty soon, like, there's gonna be somebody that is gonna run out of toilet paper. And that person is going to be like, hey, Justin, why can't I wipe my ass?
Yeah.
Well, it's because, like, I'm, like, I picked a fight with the wrong bear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're going to have to use your left hand.
Well,
like
to keep it Canadianly correct, it'd be poke the beaver, I think, to be honest.
Watch your
I'm just saying.
The moose.
The beaver is the Canadian. Toby taught me that. That's why that's on our logo.
That's our national logo.
That's why our graphics for this show is a beaver and an eagle. Don't poke the beaver. So, with that being said, I think we'll sign off.
Well, I mean, let's poke it.
That's it.
I mean,
we're talking about the Canadian symbol. That's all we're talking about, Mom. I know you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Poking the beaver.
That's it. With everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Glad you're here. Don't forget, yes, there's a thing called Veterans Day coming up, or Valentine's Day, which is not near as good as Veterans Day. Coming up next week. We'll see you guys next Thursday here on Stu and the Nunn, 8 o'clock Eastern. Keep in line with all of our socials. Follow us on everywhere, and we will see you guys all. Where's my volume at? What? We hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.